Well, hello, everyone. I'm Linda Sechrist, president of the Southwest Florida Reset Center. So, welcome to our program this afternoon on regenerative agriculture. And on behalf of all of our Reset members, some who can't be with us, we are happy to have you and to have you with us to explore this important subject with our experts today. For those of you who are new to Reset, or as a refresher for anyone who has been with us for our previous programs, our Southwest Florida Reset Center is located in Fort Myers on the beautiful 12-acre campus of the Unitarian Universalist Church, which is just off of Daniels Road on Shire Lane. We are a 501c3, which convenes diverse organizations and individuals within our bioregion in order to address the root causes of harmful environmental policies and practices. We encourage collaboration, like today, in setting common goals for creating long-term solutions for important environmental issues that we are facing. Our goals are represented in the acronym of our name, RESET: restorative, ecological, social, economic, and transformative systemic solutions for the greater common good. Our outreach programs, such as this one, raise awareness, increase visibility, and encourage public commitment of Southwest Florida citizens. We provide the visibility and organizational means to collectively raise public prominence and potential for influencing relations with potential sources of funding and local and state level governmental agencies. And now I'll turn this over to Gary Robbins, who's our Reset Vice President. It's all yours, Gary.
Thank you, Linda. Monsieur Emmanuel Roux is a wonderful and warm human being with a consuming passion for love of earth, food, and farming. He has a special interest and pursuit in urban and peri-urban agriculture, applying regenerative principles. He is a student, a learner, and a teacher of soil and gut microbiome and how they relate to each other in human health. As such, he is a Pied Piper of the active hope we all can have for a better, sustainable future. He is engaged in both small and large-scale demonstration projects, some for many years, and a major local food system development and research project in collaboration with the University of South Florida. Emmanuel has managed and owned businesses, including restaurants, and he has a deep, deep reverence for knowledge which leads to the authentic wisdom of the elders of the tribe, the human family. He hails from the beautiful country of Vive la France. Monsieur.
Thank you, Gary. That's very kind of you. Good afternoon, everybody. First, I would like to thank the organizers of Reset and especially Ted Brown for inviting me to discuss what is regenerative agriculture. Regenerative agriculture is now a buzzword that may need clarification. First of all, it is working with nature, replicating the cycles of life that Earth has depended on for 1 or 2 billion years and Homo sapiens for 200,000 years. It is also the triple interaction of chemistry, mineral, nutrients, CO2, biology, soil microbes and fungi, who are the workers, and energy, which is solar and other energies resulting in photosynthesis. All three elements working in unison. Regenerative agriculture does not feed plants directly or use no or little external inputs, such as fertilizers, synthetic herbicides, or pesticides. Regenerative agriculture feeds the soil microbiome, from fungi to bacteria to protozoa and earthworms, which in turn make nutrients available to plants by breaking down organic material. Nutrients go up trees or plants. Solar energy and CO2 via photosynthesis produce sugars, resulting in carbon-rich organic matter, which eventually feeds fungi and microorganisms. Waste and the dead bodies of microorganisms become someone else's nitrogen-rich lunch. Nutrients absorbed by roots are sent up the trees or plants and back down again in an ever-expanding cycle. Regenerative agriculture farmers replicate in their fields the natural cycles of forest and prairies. In light of all this natural cycle, we may ask, what is the regenerative agriculture farmer's role? Simply put, it is parenting. A mother does not instruct her child to grow liver, brain, or skin cells. It happens naturally. A farmer does not tell Swiss chard, carrots, or papaya when to grow roots, stems, or leaves. It happens naturally. A mother nurtures her child with optimal shelter, environment, food, water, and constant attention. A regenerative farmer nurtures zillions of indefatigable workers who, like us, require shelter, air, water, energy, and food, and no synthetic chemicals. A regenerative farmer has a reverence for the natural world, values its resilience, and respect its order. So what is the difference between organic and regenerative agriculture? Organic agriculture, while encouraging microbial life, does not necessarily focus on it. A farm can be certified organic while following a model of conventional agriculture dependent on outside input, fertilizers, fungicides, and pesticides. Organic certification only requires the use of certified organic products, positively reducing synthetic chemical residues. However, by focusing on chemistry, it misses the biology side of the triangle, which I like to remind you is biology, chemistry, and energy. A living soil health is an afterthought. Regenerative agriculture decreases and ultimately eliminates outside inputs, nurturing a thriving soil microbiome with cover crops to keep the soil moist, covered, fed, and protected. Does that sound familiar? So what is the future of regenerative agriculture? Sorry, it's a little bit of a tongue twister. Conventional chemical inputs farming is reaching its limit, resulting in soil erosion, loss of organic matter, and loss of microbial life. All three leverage each other's effects, leading to catastrophic environmental and economic consequences. As an example, 90 years ago, the Dust Bowl in the Midwest was a dramatic example, which, by the way, was solved with restoring fields with plant to cover and protect the soil from wind erosion. Regenerative agriculture uses self-healing natural plants and soil microbiome-based methods. It nurtures microorganisms, resulting in a living, healthy soil. Farmers are business people and driven by their bottom line. Regenerative agriculture focuses on rich microbial and fungal soil communities, produce nutrient-dense plants, and higher prices for their higher nutritional qualities. Fewer inputs, fewer capital expenses, more knowledge of the soil and nature improves farmers' revenue. A conversion to regenerative agriculture is rarely driven by altruistic or environmental reasons. For more and more farmers, it is a path to preserve their soil, which is their main capital. So let's look at regenerative farming principles. The number one is minimal plowing, which equals to no need for expensive machinery, which in turns equals to reduce equipment and fuel expenses. Heavy equipment creates soil compaction, and in regenerative agriculture, plowing is not needed. On the other hand, we have zillions of earthworms, roots, and microbial life who do the tilling to supply the soil with food, air, water, absorption, and retention. Cover crops are another key element of regenerative agriculture, and they are a blend of plants grown to cover the soil and transform solar energy into organic matter that will feed and improve soil microbial life quantitatively and qualitatively. A switch from monoculture to polyculture farm is another major principle, which means growing many different crops. For example, hundreds of acres of tomatoes versus many vegetables and rotating crops developing synergies, legumes adding nitrogen, other plants adding trace minerals, and so on. Another very important principle is the introduction or the reintroduction of livestock. Animals eat plants, breaking down nutrients to a simple form that plants can readily access. By rotating crops and grazing, farmers do not deplete the same nutrients year after year. Rotations enable the soil to rest and get replenished, replicating the model of nature where large herds graze, trample grasses, feeding the soil and bury seeds. And then they move on to return several months later to a lush prairie. So, how are those regenerative agriculture principles applied to small farms and gardens? First one is do not till. Aerate and loosen the soil with a pitchfork or implements that will not turn it. And sell your rototiller, because the rototiller blends and degrades the soil, puts too much air and oxygen in it, which oxidizes it. Keep mulching to feed microorganisms. Add grasses before they set seeds. Add wood chips, leaves, seaweeds, craft paper. All those are okay. Plastic is not. Make good compost tea and spray it, and add fish emulsion. Everybody likes a little seafood from time to time. And molasses also add a little sweetness to bacteria who, like us, enjoy an occasional dessert. In Florida soils, use powdered activated charcoal. It is the bacteria ideal for luxury condo with a fully stocked bar and pantry. They will happily reproduce and break down the surface organic matter into available nutrients. Analyze your soil with a comprehensive chemical and bacteriological tests done by a soil lab focused on regenerative agriculture. I personally use CSI in Michigan. Also, be a good boss. Value and understand your microbial staff needs. Count them. Learn who they are with regular checkups. Give them a bonus under the form of trace minerals when needed to stimulate them. Systems in human society function exactly the same as the systems in nature. So now that we have a good living soil, what are the special opportunities for regenerative agriculture farmers? A major thing that we are facing is the public nature deficit disorder. Nature deficit disorder is a term coined by Richard Louv in his book, The Last Child in the Woods, where he addresses the disconnection we suffer from the natural world. This nature deficit creates opportunities to teach classes and offer tours to explain where food comes from, and to taste nutrient-dense food. Those activities generate income, educate the public, and advertise farms in the best possible way. Promote the notion of nutrient-dense products, which command a higher value and offer regenerative agriculture farmers a powerful sales argument. Nutrient-dense products have a positive health impact on the farm's clients, building valuable goodwill and long-term customer relationships. In conclusion, what are the benefits of regenerative agriculture? One, it will save the soil we depend on for food and much more. As an example, the Mississippi carries an average of 20 truckloads of sediments every minute, 365 days a year, into the Gulf of Mexico, polluting it with leach chemicals which may contribute to red tide and other ills. Regenerative agriculture positively impacts nutrition with healthy, nutrient-dense food, improving human health and preserve the soils we depend on. It also improves farmers' income and their long-term economic resilience. It reverses the damage done over the last 100 years that to what was once some of the richest soils in the world, the Midwest prairies, and also many other places in China. And if you look at aerial photographs of Madagascar, images of Madagascar or Haiti, you can see the islands that are covered, that are surrounded by muddy water. Regenerative agriculture also increased the CO2 sequestration in soils with substantial climate change mitigating effects. So please spread the word about regenerative agriculture as if our children and grandchildren's lives depended on it, because they do. Thank you for your interest. And if I have just another minute, I would like to stress the importance of local food systems to promote regenerative agriculture and the availability of fresh, healthy food. A local food system is to be viewed as a vertically integrated system to efficiently coordinate food production and distribution directly to consumers. The raison d'être of a local food system is to move farm products from field to fork, bypassing the long circuit and multiple expensive intermediaries of distributors, retailers who squeeze farmers and consumers at both ends of the circuit. A local food system is usually organized around a food hub to aggregate and distribute farm products. It creates entrepreneurship opportunities and jobs, better prices for the farmers, and affordable, fresh and better foods for consumers while keeping money circulating in a more resilient community. I am consulting with USF on such a project. Those interested are welcome to contact me through Reset for further information. You're also welcome to come and visit the 15th Strike Farm in St. Petersburg when you happen to be in the area. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for a great talk. That's a wonderful lead in to our next speaker. I can see where all of the connecting links are coming from. So it's my pleasure then to introduce our second speaker today, Renee Giroux, who hails from Connecticut. It may seem a little strange that we've brought somebody from Connecticut down here to Florida to talk about agriculture, but as we go along, I'm sure that it will become evident that the commonalities between what Renee deals with up in Connecticut and what Emmanuel was talking about are going to be very clear. So Renee has been a horticulturist for many years, and she's developed a very big reputation in this area. She's a popular speaker in New York State and Connecticut on the circuit, talking about organic greenhouse operations and especially herb production. She and her husband are co-founders of a place called Earth's Palette Farm, a 40-acre farm, which includes the raising of animals as well as produce and fruits. And the operations also include a large greenhouse. A particular thing about it that Renee is doing that I think is so interesting is she was the founder of a thing called the Northwestern Connecticut Food Hub, a service that supports farmers by connecting them with larger and more consistent wholesale and niche markets for their farm products. This is the sort of thing that Emmanuel was speaking of, and this is something which I think we really don't see much of down here in Florida. This is an important component of creating a more viable economic situation for small growers. And they often have to struggle at times to find markets for their produce. So Renee's been an activist for 14 years in horticulture and sustainable agriculture. I think it's really interesting that among her missions today, something quite nice, she designs and installs living pantries in homes, schoolrooms, and restaurants, growing fruits, vegetables, and herbs year round. Renee, welcome to this program, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here today from cold and snowy Connecticut. And as I was saying earlier, I'm a bit jealous of the weather down there. So yeah, thank you all so much for having me here. I'm really excited to get the show on the road and share a little bit of my life over the next 20 minutes. So if you bear with me for a second, I'm going to share my screen. Thank you, everyone. All right, so we are Earth's Palette Farm. We're located in Warren, Connecticut. We're on 40 acres. We're in year 3 right now, over a 10-year vision. As I was introduced before, I'm an organic horticulturalist, but I also have a full season regenerative agriculture background as well. Being a farmer and horticulturalist up here in New England, you know, our weather varies, our temperatures vary. And so we have to be really creative, think on our feet on how to produce nutritional produce year round. This is an overview of our farm right now. As you can see, we have a market garden, greenhouses, we have solar, we're in the middle of the woods, which is kind of a nice break from, you know, the regular industrial farming where you don't really see, all you see is miles and miles of open pasture and people not really utilizing the diverse fields that you have around you. This is one of our greenhouses as well. I know it's hydroponic, which can be a little controversial. When we moved onto the farm, we did have one of these greenhouses already erected. And one of the previous farmers that were here were really big into hydroponics. So we my husband and I really wanted to see the pros and the cons of, you know, really a controlled environment situation. And I believe in being able to understand all different aspects of greenhouse growing. I think is important to be able to see the pros and the cons, really study the water, the nutrients, all of that goes into it to see if it's really beneficial versus traditional soil farming. So out of this greenhouse, we're able to produce 600 heads of lettuce a week year round, which in our neck of the woods is kind of a big deal considering our growing season's about 3.5 to 4 months long. So being able to produce that kind of high quality, high volume produce is really important for our community. So we don't use any chemicals or pesticides or spray anything on our produce. As I was introduced before, I'm an organic horticulturalist and I've developed greenhouse biosphere growing system, meaning I take different beneficial insects and implement them to create a really incredible living ecosystem inside every single greenhouse that I use. So a combination of that, and one of my secrets is kombucha that I spray on our plants as well. So kombucha, a lot of people think of that as something that you drink that's good for your gut, that's, you know, really healthy and really beneficial. Well, it's also immensely beneficial for your plants. So by spraying a small amount on the surface of the plant, on the top part and the bottom of the part, what it actually does is it increases its digestive system, its strength, its muscles. It's able to adapt adapt and be more resilient in adverse weather conditions. So here in Connecticut, it's really hot during the summer, 100 plus during the winters, it can be, -0. And to be able for a plant to survive in those kind of adverse conditions, they need a little extra help from us, the stewards of the land. So by introducing kombucha and creating an all natural biosphere in these greenhouses, we're really able to grow, really nutrient dense plants, which is important. I know a lot of folks, they talk about hydroponics with the chemicals and all the different high salts that are in the water system. Yes, that's true. We do use pure ingredients in our hydroponic system. I do add different trace minerals, and as well as different types of crystals are put in the water as well to create more of a natural environment. So if you look at Myanmar, this is where hydroponics actually arrived from. And it's really interesting when you see these huge floating barges in the middle of nowhere where these plants are growing and receiving their nutrients all on water. And we've, as scientists, they've taken that and they've replicated into this kind of high-tech, funky hydroponic system. So this is greenhouse number 1. This is my husband's domain. I'm a soil junkie, and so he takes care of this 100% while I focus on more of our soil-based houses. So this greenhouse right here, it might not look like much, but the real incredible thing is that there's no heat in it. So during the middle of winter, like I said earlier, it's -0. So within this greenhouse, I have 4.5-foot insulation that goes down to the ground. So it creates like a true sealed raised bed where we're able to really work with the microbes, feed the microbes, build living soils within this greenhouse. So if you see in between each of these beds, there's compost as well as wood chips that I've broken down with the help of different herbs and minerals that are created in different tinctures that are created here from a lot of the plants that we use in compost on the farm. And then out of this greenhouse, we let it sleep for about 2 months, but there's a lot of particular care and planning with all of that goes into the greenhouse, meaning with every single plant that's planted for human consumption, there's also a reason that we leave stuff behind to help build the soil. So whatever we take in, we leave a little bit back. So it's a real give and take between building the soil and feeding our families. So we also raise a number of animals. So we like to integrate, have everyone live together. We have a large flock of sheep. We also have over 100 egg layers. We also have meat birds that are raised on pasture. But we believe that integrating all of these animal species together is really important for not only the health of the animals, but also the health of the land. And healthy rotational grazing with the animals really helps build the microbiology in the soil, which is really important, which was actually Emmanuel said earlier. So by having all of these diverse forms on our property, we're able to really harvest a large amount of produce from such a small area as we continue to build out. So our key thing is to go slow, take our time, as I've done on multiple other farms over the past 15 years, and then continue to build out and be a model for other farmers in our area and across the country to continue to use these regenerative practices to create a whole living biosphere system in the greenhouse, as well as a whole living farm ecosystem outside. So a big part of what we do is we compost and then make herbal tinctures, as well as we bloom indigenous microorganisms. And so if you look at these 3 pictures, the one to your left over here, where it looks like you have pink rice with white, and then you have these really interesting hairs that are coming up out of them. That's actually indigenous microbes that are bloomed on the nature's floor. So with that, when you bloom these indigenous microbes, you're actually bringing and collecting these incredible microorganisms that naturally break down the forest floor. If you look in a healthy forest, all you see is, you don't see invasive weeds, you don't see, obnoxious plants that suffocate a lot of the trees and a lot of the fruiting bushes that you see naturally survive throughout the world. So the amazing thing about this technique is that it's very simple and it kind of takes regenerative farming to another level. So with that, you're able to bloom. This is a whole other long conversation, but we bloom indigenous microbes from our forest floor. And then we take a portion of that and then we combine it with some of our compost, some oat barley, various rice hulls, and along with what is a oriental herbal nutrition, which is comprised of about 22 different herbs that are then fermented in apple cider and brown sugar. And all of this is collected, and this is kind of a brain and a heart and a jump start for a lot of our living soil that we produce here on our farm. And so this is my daughter, Hunter. We really believe that children are a huge part of farming and a huge part of our youth. So we have a lot of kids come onto our farm. This past summer has been a bit different during the circumstances that we're all living under. But as you can see here, we do a combination of fabric because we're just starting to get going with our farm. And so there are a lot of obnoxious weeds that we do have in our soil. So with that, we're building it naturally. We're not tilling. We are using a lot of cover crops. We're crimping. We're adding a lot of our homemade compost to it, as well as bringing a lot of our animals after we're done harvesting in different sections of where we're going to transplant 3 months later. So a key thing of regenerative agriculture, which a lot of people have made some mistakes by not doing their homework or wanting to make everything happen a lot faster, is that by the time you put an animal on a piece of pasture or a piece of farmland, you need about 3 to 4 months before you're able to plant it again. So because of that, because of the raw manures, because of the microbiology that's in the soil, because of the plants, because of the whole ecosystem that you're trying to create needs that time to replenish. And it also needs that time to kind of recalibrate itself. So I always like to say that the soil more or less is a brain, and that with that it needs time to understand everything that's happening and going on as it slowly shifts from somewhat of a cloudy brain to a more of a clear thinking brain. We do a lot of seed sowing and saving on our farm. I'm a firm believer that a seed that's sown here in Connecticut versus a seed that's sown in Florida to one that's sown in Japan to one that's sown in France, they are the same plant. But because our conditions are so different, there's a genetic reset button that happens when you start to collect the seeds over generations of times from your particular region and area. And with that, they become a little bit more resilient to some of the swinging temperatures, to some of the various, climate changes that we've all been going through. So I'm not sure what it's like in Florida, but up in Connecticut, we have about 3.5 months of really good growing season. So every single year, our springs are colder and they're wetter. The rainfall is more intense. We had snow in May, which is kind of unheard of, to a really long, dry, hot October, to then everything really freezing over. So by collecting the seeds, they have that genetic imprint of that season on the actual seed. And so next year when it's replanted, it's able to adapt. It's able to just be a little bit more resilient to the nature in the area that it's being grown. So in addition to our CSA program that we have on the farm, I also started what's called War and Grown. I am really into community and building community amongst farmers because I feel it's so important for our food system, for all of us to be working together. Farming is really more of a passion than you're doing it to make a substantial income. And by all of us working together and creating these micro niche organizations as well as CSA programs, it really helps bolster the community at large, as well as bring everything back together and really teach our community where your food comes from. So War and Grown CSA started 2 years ago, and right now in our small little town, we have about 4 farmers that are participating. So it's more of a co-op than anything. And CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture. So during a few months during the winter months, we market our program and people sign up for a full CSA share. or a partial CSA share. So that way, come June through October, they get a weekly basket of produce every week. And what that upfront cost does for the actual farmer is that it helps us purchase our seeds, purchase these huge amendments that we need to get the farm going, pay our workers, pay our employees, get our new batch of whatever we need to buy in. So CSA programs are really, really important and vital for small family farms. Next, we're going to talk about the food hub. So I'm talking about a lot of different things that I do up here, but I wear a lot of hats in our community. And I also am never bored, and nor do I like to be bored. That's why I'm involved with so many things. So the Northwest Connecticut Food Hub was founded 3.5 years ago. It's a 501c3. Up here in the northwest corner, there's over 200 small farms and growing and counting. And there was a study done 4.5 years ago that went out to all the farmers to see what they wanted. If they wanted a co-op, if they wanted more farmers markets, and just really looking for the needs of what the farmer is really looking for to continue to grow or to continue the different channels of distribution that they have up there. So basically, a lot of the farmers said that they wanted a food hub. What a food hub is basically it's a lot of driving. We work with right now actually close to 40 farms, and we're growing every day, which is really tremendous. So I, was the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker 3 years ago by expanding our customer base, educating the public on small family farms and what that means, not only for their community, but for their health, as well as the climate. And so with that, we were able to aggregate now we're up to close to 40 farms. We pool our produce together in a food safety warehouse in Torrington, which is about 20 minutes from here. And then it goes out to various portions of the state. So we go all the way from southern Massachusetts down to New York City, as far as Rhode Island, and some places in New York State. And then we're working with other food hubs, which is really a tremendous thing that happened last year. So another food hub is in Massachusetts, which is an hour and a half north of us. And basically, we're trying to build a resilient food system and a resilient food supply chain just from small regenerative farms. It's an uphill battle, but it's worth the fight because people are really starting to wake up and understand that food is medicine. And everything that's happening now in the world, people are starting to wake up even more, and they're starting to realize that the hero is a small farmer that's been in their backyard that they've always waved to. And now they're starting to really talk to them. And this is a real pivotal time in small family farming because we're able to really have the stage and really present all the positive benefits, not just for climate, but also the medicinal purposes of food itself. A couple of our programs is Produce RX, but I'm going to talk about that in a second. Just in a small 4-month, 3.5-month window of time, $85,000 was a direct payment to farmers, which is something that's pretty incredible if you think about it. So a lot of times the farmers, they have their own markets, their own farmers markets, their own restaurants, their own relationships. And so they do have an excess amount of produce that they grow every year. So a lot of times what we do is we end up taking that produce and we end up selling to these other channels of distribution. So the produce supply versus demand has actually increased this year, which is pretty incredible. A lot of our customer base was restaurants and was the small grocery stores and some of these boutique markets. And so we had to pivot very quickly when the pandemic hit. And it was somewhat of a blessing that, everyone was so receptive. We were really nervous at first just because of the restaurants, and we still wanted to support them. So we started a CSA program with the restaurants, which is pretty incredible. They were able to offer the produce that they love to cook with, offer recipes, as well as different meals that they would prepare with our produce. And they were able to kind of do a small boutique grocery shopping through their restaurant. And there was an overwhelming response with that, with within our community. And so, the numbers weren't there that they were hoping for that they would normally have, but at the same time, they were able to stay in front of their customer base. They were still able to say, we're here, we're healthy, we want to continue to feed you. And we're also working with the food hub, and this is the food hub. And so there was a lot of really wonderful an eye-opening experience again, where we were able to talk about food transportation from your local backyard to some of these huge corporate farms over on the West Coast that everything is being trucked in. The flavor profile and the nutrient density and all of that is just pretty tremendous. So again, it was a real challenging time, but at the same time, we were able to really voice and really help our communities. So we run on grant funding right now. A lot of food hubs, they start this way. So with that, you have your model, and then you work with other nonprofits in the area. So we address a lot of food insecurity within our region. And one of the big ones is the Produce RX. So this is a really wonderful program that we started 2 years ago. This year will be 3.0. So we work with our local hospital. And what we do is we work with their dietitians, and they have their different clients that come in that kind of have these different metrics, meaning they're obese, they are food insecure, or they have underlying health conditions. And with that, they're able to write a food prescription and hand it to them. So for last summer, we had 150 people part of our program, and we were able to give them $35 share for 3.5 months for fresh local produce, which is pretty incredible. We just had so many people come in. We ended up having a wait list. So the program is really well received. And then with that, the dietitians are then able to monitor and weigh some of the pros to what the produce does. So again, it goes back to food is medicine. And so we're really pushing for a lot of these types of programs to come up, and hopefully more of this will catch wind, and more states and more communities will kind of use these programs. And so it can maybe eventually be a part of, our healthcare system on a national level, but maybe that's me just being optimistic. We also work with, this year we did 10 food pantries that we worked with and supplied with for about 3.5, 4 months on various levels. Senior nutrition, which is a pretty big thing for me. The only reason why is because I feel like a lot of times these programs that are put in place to help the seniors, the food isn't as great as either. And so by being able to, work with these mobile senior programs, they're able to get the fresh local food that really helps boost their immune system, and also works with the farmers as well. We also do a lot of farm to school stuff. So this is a thing that really touches home for me, being a mom of 2 small kids. I've worked with 7 school districts. So that would be, I think, about 18 small schools within our area and growing, to deliver fresh food to their cafeteria. So we're working a lot on these different initiatives, especially with Yukon. And I feel our biggest allies in food hubs and small farming is our local universities, to be able to really push uphill. One of the other organizations that we work really closely with is the Council of Governments, and that's comprised over 22 first selectmen and mayors within our region. It's really a broad group of people that we work with, from our universities to our local governing bodies, to our hospitals, to our food pantries, and all of it. So it's an amazing circle. And at the very center, we have our small farms. And so if you look at how much a small farm touches so many different points within our community, it's really fascinating. And it's actually the backbone, I think, of humanity, and that we all need to be more in touch with that. We also do food safety. And I know this is something that's not really part of what we're talking about with regenerative agriculture, but it's really important now that a lot of people are starting farms and a lot of people are starting their own backyard chicken coops. There's been a little bit of a rise in salmonella and different foodborne illnesses, which is okay, not really, but being able to understand that you need to wash your hands after handling food, wash your hands after handling your eggs, being able to kind of track and trace and keep things separate is really important. And understanding the timetable of where your manures actually break down and are beneficial for your plants, but are not beneficial for human consumption. So there's a lot of things that go into that as well and are really important piece. So that's my 20 minutes on farming and the food hub. And I talked a lot about a lot of different things. And it's really hard for me to focus on one topic when there's so many incredible points and pieces to everything that we're trying to do up here and beyond. So I just want to thank you all very much for letting me show you what's happening up here. And I hope you appreciated it and you got some good stuff.
I thought it might be interesting to take a few minutes for Emmanuel and Renee to just compare notes a little bit on some of the points. Maybe Emmanuel, you might want to comment on some of the things that Renee said, and you know, and particularly if you see some things that transportable down here too. And I see that Sharon Joy is here. Maybe she might have some thoughts too when we get to the Q&A here in a few minutes. But Renee and Emmanuel, would you like to make any comments about one another's presentations before we turn it over to general Q&A?
I think that it is well known that great things or important things happen in different places of the world simultaneously. And I think that this is one example. I think that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, people would look at me in complete disbelief of trying to do a farm in an urban environment. And I was talking to some people yesterday. Churches have a lot of land in an urban environment. And I was trying to convince some of them to use it instead of having lawn that they had to spray and cut every week, that they should instead grow vegetables. And I couldn't even get anybody to listen to me. And I think that now there is a real shift in perception. And as Renee said, food is medicine. And actually, if you eat good food, you don't need medicine.
Right.
So I think that is a tremendous shift. And the understanding of the gut microbiome and the soil microbiome, this is very important. So I think that Renee and I are doing our on very parallel tracks, and we need to connect all those food hubs and small regenerative agriculture farms.
I'm so impressed with that idea of the food hub, and of course I don't know the people down here all that well, but I haven't, in my efforts to talk to the small growers, I haven't seen any recognition that there might be this possibility of these cooperative interactions. And I think it's something we should try to promote, at least let them know what Renee is doing up there, which makes a wonderful example of how you could do this, and try to round up by one means or another the names of all the people in this bioregion of ours who are working, small farmers who are working separately and trying to do the best they can individually, but they could do so much better perhaps if they were able to pool their resources in this way.
Yeah, it's really incredible. There's a lot that are starting to pop up across the country, and there's just there's a common theme and a common thread for all of them, and everyone's on the same page of just helping each other and helping fix our broken food system. And I just thought it was so great to hear Emmanuel talk about the gut and the flora and the fauna and everything together. And I just, it makes my heart sing, because you're down in Florida and you're talking about this. And I feel like sometimes I'm just talking to a wall when I speak about these things, and it gets so frustrating. And so I'm so looking forward to talking to you offline and continuing all this conversation. And it was really wonderful.
My hope is that by developing a model of local food system as a big umbrella, where you have home gardens to community gardens to urban farms to peri-urban farms, and a food hub and systems of distributions directly to consumers, we're going to be able to relieve the farmers from being logistic managers and salespeople and delivery people, and they're going to be able to focus on growing products and educating people. And the way to do that is to get some people from the foundations from Silicon Valley, where they are sitting on huge amounts of money that they don't know what to do, and they love to disrupt things. Well, I would love to disrupt the current big food and big ag distribution and break it down the same way that big computers were broken down into PCs and have taken over. This is what we happen to do. We happen to have to do, and I believe, and I have some indications that they would respond to that. So I want to approach them and get 20 or 30 million dollar, buy land, have a farm incubator, build a food hub, and develop that. And
don't
then,
forget about me up here.
what?
You could throw some of that funding up here.
Absolutely.
Well,
The point is to show them that there is a demand, that we just need that impetus, we need that financing, and then it is a self-perpetuating system.
okay, it's I think this is we've got the seeds of something here. I think before we go on to the general Q&A, just remark that one of the functions of the Reset Center is to be a hub, for intellectual interactions. We want people to come to our center to talk about things like this, to be able to get together in groups, to form coalitions, to plan things. We want to be or exchange ideas and be sources of education as well. So I think this is raw stuff, for the Reset Center. So we maybe we're going to hope to grow from this meeting onward.
It's more effective if people talk with a shovel in their hands.
Oh yeah,
and they dig.
Holly's okay. Well, better go on to Holly then in the general Q&A for the time element.
So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Holly Rowan and one of the founding members of the Reset Center, and I am streaming to you from 12 and a half acres of beautiful land where there is a huge community garden where our Reset Center office is. And from the very beginning, a year ago, when we talked about forming this organization, we said, shall we be a hub or an incubator? And I think that we're really working to be a hub, but we want to incubate a food forest here eventually too. That's just an aside in case any of you have about $65,000 you'd like to give me. My hand is open. So you have great questions here, everybody, just awesome questions. I will just kind of go through them, and then whoever feels most able to answer them. And 2 questions from Linda. One of them is, in a compost bin, is newspaper okay to use in a compost? And I know I've used it in worm farming before. Is newsprint all right to use?
Yeah, you can absolutely use it. Just make sure there's no gloss on it at all. But there's a really neat style of farming called lasagna gardening, and that's one of the components that goes in it, and how you layer everything up, and it suppresses the weeds and also gives back to the microbes in the soil. So yes. Excellent.
And the other question was, and I think, Emmanuel, you mentioned a system, but how do you measure or determine what microbes are in the soil or what ones are missing?
I think that Renee is probably better equipped to answer this. I have some thoughts, but I think that's a question for her.
Good. I love the kombucha part because I make kombucha.
Yes.
I make too much, so.
She seems to be a little ahead of me on this.
I don't know about that, but I'll do my best. So I do 2 things. One, I really enjoy using my microscope, but that's a pretty advanced way. And so I'd have to get it out. Maybe we can do another microscope session to hook one up and show you what all of them are under a fine lens. Another one is I will send them out to my local university because you get a faster lead time back, and they'll give you the right microbe count, and you'll know within there what you need to add. If it's different sugars, they like to give you a lot of different suggestions, but a lot of times I've taken that and added my own herbal nutrients back into the soil as a better amendment to kind of kickstart things.
Excellent. I know our extension service does some testing for people
Yeah.
local here.
I
Yeah.
get a specialized lab to do that once a year, and they tell me what I need, what minerals I need to use, and but I would like to get a microscope, and for the moment, I only have a magnifying glass, and so it's the next step.
I have two questions that kind of are merging together as one question. One's from Fred Moon and one's from Ariel Hoover. And the question was about, are there or is there an association of food hubs, either regionally or nationally? And the other question Ariel was asking was, are there an example of food hubs here locally in the Southwest Florida? She said Fort Myers, but I'm thinking of us as a bioregion.
I think there might be one in Florida. I know there's some scattered throughout the South, but if you go to the Wallace Center, if you look that up, the Wallace Center, Winrock, there's a whole listserv of food hubs throughout the country. I believe there are a few in Florida right now, but I'm not sure how large they are or when they started.
All right, well, we are definitely researching that. And if anybody else here knows an answer to that question, you could put it in the chat and let us know. But I think maybe that's part of what we need to be doing as a reset center with the help of the rest of the community, is to start to build that network. Lots of good stuff popping up in the chat. Someone here is asking, how much does it cost, Emmanuel? Could you please share the info about the place you work with in Michigan?
I just posted the name. It's CSI, which stands for Crop Services International. And the test that I get, which is both a chemical and biological test, is about $125. And you get a very detailed thing. I've been doing it. And over the years, we've seen the progression that is absolutely remarkable. And we had a big problem with root knot nematodes, and we've considerably reduced it just with biology.
Well, there was a question in the chat about nematodes, because they really seem to plague a lot of the growers here, especially growing root vegetables. So how do we deal with nematodes?
Well, there is one thing that you can do and which actually we're planting next week. We're planting a lot of mustard, because mustard, actually it kills not only nematodes, it kills pretty much everything. But by reintroducing a lot of compost tea and putting a cover crop, they will recover fairly quickly. And having some ground cover, keeping some ground cover, the nematodes, the root knot nematodes, will disappear over time. Also, using compost with compost tea made with a vermicompost is apparently very effective. And we're doing the seedlings with incorporating a lot of vermicompost, so that will act as a protector. And also we do what I call my magic powder, which is ground up charcoal that is inoculated with compost tea and minerals. So it's just having a very biologically rich soil is the answer. Nature will work it out, and they'll fight it out and balance it.
Excellent. That's one of my dreams. We're going to start doing some worm composting here, Bonnie Clancy and I. I see you, Bonnie. Yay, yay, yay. Working on that. And we've been looking at different ways to do it. So that's great. Randy says, I run a STEM education nonprofit in Delaware, and I'm in the middle of a student-run Youth Empowerment Summit, YES, virtual this year. High school students would love to hear these stories, but here the STEM teachers in middle school and high school. And so he's asking, do we focus on such teachers with their work? And I'm going to start to answer that and saying, before we started the Reset Center, most of us founders started a fund with the Southwest Florida Community Foundation called the Southwest Florida Climate Action Fund. And one of our very first projects that we funded was with Bill Hammond and the Calusa Nature Center to work with the Lee County School District to try to develop some programs based on science, on growing food, and climate solutions, climate change solutions. So I do believe we need to start with the children in each of our communities, and maybe someone else has, especially one of our two speakers, maybe you're already working with children because they're the ones that are inheriting what we're hoping to make less of a mess of before we die.
Yeah, so actually, I do work with a lot of school kids. So I used to actually homeschool my oldest son, and we had a cohort of kids that would come Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays to the farm and just have our science here for about 4 hours weekly. And it was really magical how much the kids loved it. And then I did a mentorship program with public school teachers who were earning their master's degree. And they spent about, I think, close to 2 months coming to the farm 5 days a week. And we went through everything from bed prep to herbal nutrition to making different tinctures for the plants, not only the plants, but for ourselves. I'm also an herbalist, and kind of understanding all of that goes together so they could bring those tools and those resources back to their kids in the inner city. And so it's been a really wonderful kind of give and take with all of it. And some of these kids from the inner city have come here, or their eyes have opened, and it's pretty amazing how some of them don't even understand that ketchup comes from a tomato, that's a main component. And so when you kind of bridge those two things together, and it's still, when I was doing some work in the Bronx and in New York, that was one thing that really still blew me away, because we think, it's 2020 or 2021 that they would still get that, but it's slowly happening. And it's really important that we keep touching the youth and really educating them in this arena, as well as really pushing the farm to school.
I think that will only get people to care about the environment and their health if they feel that they are part of it. There is a disconnect between nature and humans that is absolutely, that is a tremendous handicap. And I think that the way we talk about it, or we talk about farming, or we talk about food, people say, well, eat broccoli because it's good for you. Well, that doesn't cut it. If you get a kid to plant a broccoli, then it is his or her broccoli, and they will eat it because they're part of it. They are. So if we can convey that we are dependent on nature, then they will understand this. When I speak with kids, I use a lot of metaphors, and I explain to them that when we talk about digestion, for example, I explain to them the digestive tube, and they have no idea what it is or how it functions. So I explain to them, I get them to put their hand in the compost and then put their hand on their stomach, and they see that there is a similar temperature. And then I explain that in our gut, it is the same thing as in a city. If you don't take care of the alleys and that you leave garbage, then you're going to have the wrong people and the wrong things happening in the alleys. It is the same thing in our guts. So you need to keep it clean, bring in good, put a coat of fresh paint, clean it up, and everything. There is no opportunities for the bad guys to be there. So if there is a parallel between the human systems and the natural system, and if once they make the connection between the two, then it's very easy.
That's a great note to end this on. I had more questions like about the crystals and stuff, but we're going to have to invite you back, Renee and Emmanuel. This is so rich. I would like to ask Gary Robbins, our Vice President of the Southwest Florida Reset Center, to help us bring this wonderful gathering, so informative to a close. And I thank you both so much, both of you and everyone who showed up. I'm so happy to see you all.
Thank you, Renee and Emmanuel, and for everyone who has attended. I just want to share a couple things at the very end here. Thoreau said that there are 1,000 people hacking at the branches of evil, for each one striking at the roots. So Reset Center is really focused on trying to get at the root causes of the issues that we continually deal with in Southwest Florida. And so regenerative agriculture is one of the ways that we envision being able to resolve some of the issues that we have in Southwest Florida by focusing on something that will really bring us the kind of health and the kind of community that we are all striving to bring here. And so today is just one example of the kinds of things that we are focusing on. We also have other programs that we have done in the past, and we have a number of things that we are planning in the future. And I invite you to go to our website, SWFLreset.org, and get acquainted with us there. We want to hear from you. We want to know what is impacting you and how we can be of benefit to you. I want to say further that many of us who have founded the Reset Center are people who come from a Pachamama Alliance background. And the goal for Pachamama is to create an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, socially just human presence on the planet. And one of the things that they offer at the international level is the upcoming Game Changer gathering. So if you want to be a game changer in this community or in your community, wherever you are listening from, this is an 8-week online course that you do at your own pace. And it is just incredibly powerful. And that will be posted. It's already posted in the chat. So you can go there. You must sign up by March 21st. We are also very much oriented toward the 7-petal permaculture flower, and we have a website for you to be able to go and check that out. Also, many of us are involved with Earth Charter in one way or another, and there are so many things that tie in with what we have been dealing with today that are in the Earth Charter. But it all starts with awareness, and the awareness that you have just being here today is absolutely wonderful. But the end result must be for us to all embody the wisdom that we pick up along the way and make it become real in our communities, because our communities are so screaming for healthy, good systems to nurture our children and our future citizens and those of us who are already here. So we love that you were here today. If there are ways that we can be of assistance to you, please let us know and share the information that you have received today and about Reset Center with your friends so that we can grow in influence in Southwest Florida. Thank you ever so much. Hope you have a great day and come and join us again soon. Thank you.